What we're also doing is tracking the spectrum auction. It was initiated by the Department of Telecommunications, and this is for the Telecom Spectrum, which has an auction, which is an auction that concluded today. The government has mopped up 11,300 crore rupees. All of 7 rounds of auctions have taken place. The total spectrum that was offered in this auction was valued at around 96,238 crore rupees. Bharti Airtel has emerged as the largest bidder so far, but previous auctions, if you see the one in 2022, has seen much higher participation and spectrum bids. Let's discuss this. Why has there been such a tepid response? To discuss it, Shashank Mishra is joining us. He's a partner at Shardul Amarchand Mangaldas Co. Mr. Mishra, thanks for making the time. You know, the last auction, I was just telling our viewers, back in 2022, a 7-day affair, more than 1.5 lakh crores worth of 5G telecom spectrum sold. And Jio emerged as the top bidder, and that meant nearly half of all the airwaves at that time went to Jio. But the story this time is very different. The auction got a very tepid response, far from the government's target for sure. What do you think are the reasons?
Thanks, Vikram. So I think one of the main reasons is the circumstances are slightly different. And I think all of us will agree that the way the response has been to these auctions has been somewhat expected. Because in 2021, when we were seeing the previous round of auction, which culminated in 2022, we'd seen that there was a large push for 5G, the adoption of 5G, it was initial days for them, and the government was really pushing as one of its key reforms and agenda to launch 5G, make sure that gets adopted across the country. It was also a spectrum auction that was happening after several years, whereas we see a much shorter time frame between the last one and this spectrum auction. And of course, there was a lot of buzz about 5G being adopted by everybody, how it's going to take the market by storm and drive up revenues, demand, etc. In that light, the current spectrum auctions were expected to, of course, be of a lower magnitude compared to the previous one. And in fact, in the government's official press release itself, they kind of say that the objective of this spectrum auction seems to be to ensure greater continuity of service, because some of these operators had their spectrum expiring within this year, and therefore they wanted that continuity to happen. Also, this was seen as a round where the existing telcos will take up some of the spectrum to drive up the quality of service, which is why there has been a limited participation, we would say, in terms of what has been taken up by the market. Whereas the previous round was one where telcos lapped up existing spectrum from a 5G adoption perspective.
While I take all these points, do tell us from your understanding how the players, Reliance Jio, Bharti Airtel and Vodafone Idea, they were vying for more radio waves, or perhaps just continuity was something that they were targeting. And this is, of course, to support high-speed mobile services. This is what the entire focus is. Now, at this point in time, how did the three stack up in this three-way race as it stands when it comes to market share and growth prospects?
Right. So I would say they've all achieved their immediate objectives. The objective, like we were saying, was ensuring continuity of service, driving up the quality of service in areas where the spectrum was scanty for each of them. Given that, I think right from the figures that we got to know through your network and others as well, to today's results as well, we find that there is that consistency in terms of each of them trying to achieve the objective of having that continuity or having greater spectrum in areas where they needed absolutely to drive up the better quality of service. Beyond that, I think it's a larger industry, I would say, concern, and also an objective of the future that the larger 5G adoption needs to be driven up. If that consumption increases, we'll, I think, see a consequent overall health growing in the sector based on that driving up of demand as well.
At the future, the telecom minister, with regard to this particular auction, has said that there is this transparency. Among other things, he's pointed out the transparency aspect of these auctions. You'd recall the 2012 Supreme Court ruling about the 2G spectrum that was allocated and the way it was allocated. Now, things are different. The new Telecom Act of 2023 also comes into effect today. How do you see the future of the industry, particularly when you talk about profitability, higher revenues for the sector? We've seen Vodafone Idea struggle a bit. Now, as far as the future is concerned, how strong does the industry look?
Yeah, so I think the government has shown a lot of intent in the last several years in terms of key reforms in the sector, right from addressing a very, very challenging time, almost 2016 onwards, when the health of the sector overall was fairly bad, we would say, to today, when some key reforms have been introduced, especially in the last 3 to 4 years, in terms of helping greater concessions for spectrum payment, or multiple other things. And you mentioned the Telecom Act as well. We've seen parts of the Act getting implemented today, and several other key parts will get implemented in due course. So we do see that there is a strong push from the government to help consumers get access to better quality of services for greater ease of doing business. And I think all of us will admit that in the last few years, we've seen that kind of push, really helping the sector from the low times that we'd seen almost 5 to 6 years ago. So in terms of what we see in the future, we would say certainly a lot of positive to look forward to. A very, very major reform in terms of the new act coming up. So close to 150 years of legacy getting changed now by way of the new act. And we are hearing a lot of news about how the rules, etc., are going to be framed under the act as well. So fairly important things from a policy and regulation perspective to look forward to. And that's certainly going to help the larger sector in terms of business sentiment as well.
Well, that should be reassuring to a lot of people who have already invested in the sector through the various companies that are listed. And now we'll see exactly how the growth prospects pan out after these auctions, and for all the things that you've pointed out for the future from the policy perspective as well. Shashank Mishra, a pleasure having you on India Tonight. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.